Hey little hoes, my name is Kristen and welcome back to my channel. So I have the bright idea of doing a 3-day countdown to New Year set of videos, 3 of them, and all sort of related to end of the year. One was going to be a tour of my plants, my plant collections, sort of recap what happened to them, how they've done over the year, or at least since like my last tour videos. The other one was going to be my wish and ditch list of the year, and wish being what I want for this next year. And then finally, my favorite plant of 2019. So I'm seeing this, fingers crossed, hopefully my lazy nature doesn't take back over and I don't get any of them done in time. But we will be giving it the old college try. And I have my little purple book with copious amounts of notes. And today's video is going to be my wish and ditch list of 2019. So what does that mean exactly? Well, I'm glad you asked because I took copious amounts of notes, like I said. So ditch list. Plants that I plan on either getting rid of, rehoming, haven't had luck with, and or killed. So there's quite a few on this list, and if you all will refer back to my rip list for Halloween, you'll see what died and those that I might try and replace. For all intents and purposes, these are ones that I just don't see myself either buying more of, or they're just doing so poorly that I'm just not going to keep them around because space is at a premium. So probably the first one on my list is going to be echeverias and the more rosette forming succulents, probably aeoniums too, but a lot of echeverias. I just don't like them, and they tend to get super leggy. Not to mention the pest problems. They get mealybugs and aphids out the wazoo. Also, my ditch list, it's going to be the Fenestraria, or the baby toes. I am not a fan of it. And again, it gets really leggy for me, and I'm sure it would do great out in a garden or something if I lived in a warm enough climate, but it is just heinous. And I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. I'm not a fan of it. So I will be ripping it out of the pot that it is currently in right over there with a Haworthia that I am okay with. Peperomias. So if you guys have watched any of my videos, you will probably know that I am not the biggest fan of peperomias. So especially the more mounding type. The more cascading type, I seem to have a lot more luck with, but the moundings, not so much. So that would include like the red ripple that I killed. I'm sure there's other like the frost series and whatever that is. I also managed to kill a rosso and a piccolo banda. And am I really sad about it? Not really, honestly. They just seem to, for whatever reason, bite the dust, and I didn't seem to be totally the problem. I don't know. I might have really, really poor skills with taking care of peperomia, but honestly, they weren't really a loss, and I probably won't be getting any other peperomias that are going to be more moundy. I also gave away a watermelon peperomia to my friend Jess this spring. Absolutely hated that thing with a passion. It was so slow growing, and the foliage, even the new foliage, didn't come out looking great, and it would quickly have like nasty brown edges to it. I don't know if it was too much water, not enough, but it was heinous, and I hate it, and I am not sorry to see it go. And I will have to ask Jess when I see her if it's doing any better. Last time I checked with her, it was slightly better, but it's not your fault. It's the plant's fault, Jess, if it dies. I'm just saying, it was a little bitch of a plant, okay? Let's just say it. So, Ficus Altissimo Arigato. I bought this one in the spring, and I wanted a little bit more structure in my living room, something a bit woodier, tree-like. And that thing was just a constant problem from pretty much the first week I brought it home. When I got it, it did have like a little bit of a brown patch. I can't remember if it was on the stem and or leaf, but it did, and I think it either had a fungal or bacterial issue that it just was never able to recover from. I set it outside during the summer months, hoping that airflow would definitely help it, which it should, but it didn't. Sulfur spray didn't help, and over the last month, it has just gotten progressively worse now that it's less sunlight, less humidity. It kept dropping one after the other. The leaves would start to be edged and brown and then fall off. So I just finally made the executive decision to chuck it. Will I try it again? Possibly. I did really like the looks of the plant and was happy with it when it did look fairly decent in the beginning days. I don't know if that particular plant had, like I said, a fungal or bacterial issue. So yes, I might try it again someday, but I will be trying one that perhaps has zero issues with it when I get it. Ferns in general, I just don't have enough humidity for them. Plain and simple. I've tried a number over the years, and they've died. They've died. And I've had some success to some degree with the more fibrous types. So like the Phlebodium aureum and the rabbit foot, the Dahlia. Those guys have been pretty good for me just because I have a feeling they are able to store up a little bit more moisture. But yeah, I'm just kind of done with ferns. I am going to try and maybe grow one or two in a terrarium that I plan on making soon. But overall, not going to bother with them. Outdoor ferns, absolutely. Indoor ferns, absolutely not. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the species on this, but the mother of thousands, Kalanchoe, and I will be showing that in my tour video. I absolutely hate it. I absolutely hate this plant. I don't see why anyone would want to grow it, in all honesty. It drops the babies, which if you like to propagate, that's fine, but these are just plain invasive. The little babies will show up around the edges of the more adult leaves, and they seem to drop in every houseplant I own. So I'm constantly trying to pick out the babies from the neighboring plants that it's around. Not to mention, it is incredibly floppy and ugly and just ungainly. It's not an attractive plant to me. It is currently sprouting out of an opuntia, and I am just, the idea of trying to get the Kalanchoe out of an opuntia, a very, very spiny opuntia, does not sound thrilling to me, so I may just wait until spring when I can, decide if I want to chuck both of them in the trash. Kalanchoes in general, I am not a huge fan of, just because they tend to get leggy for me, even in the really beautiful bright sunlight of my sunroom. So this one, I literally just today decided to chuck both of them. I was going to try and recover one of the plants, but it's just not worth it to me. The Fatsia japonicas, or false Aurelias, I think some people call them. I don't really have a spider mite problem, but that is the one plant that is the number one spider mite magnet. And it was coated with them this spring, and my plain green Fatsia, I took out and I kept spraying and spraying, and I thought I had it under control. And so I purchased a spider's web Fatsia, which I had been wanting really badly for a while. And lo and behold, it also got spider mites, surprise, surprise. And the variegation was so delicate and so white that it would brown and burn continuously. I was thinking I might take that one, the spider's web, to my work and try and like systemic it and or just spray the heck out of it and then keep it in the greenhouse to recover. But I just decided it's not worth it. I don't care enough about it, and I will probably never be owning another Fatsia japonica again. It's just the nastiest plants, which was really a bummer because the foliage is pretty awesome, and I started out doing quite well with them, but once the spider mites took those over, it was a goner. Another ditch plant is going to be Marantas. They are cool looking, but I have been having trouble with them and they suddenly just go bad. They'll look good for a bit and suddenly somebody will dry out for a little too long, or it gets too leggy and it just starts to look nasty. I lost a red one and a variegated one, and again, I'm not really sorry, so Maranta is one I'm not going to waste my time with. So there's also a few things on my contemplation list for ditching, and that's going to be the Marble Queen pothos. I just don't really care for it. It's an incredibly slow grower. I'm not able to easily propagate that particular one, so there's just a leggy one vine sticking out of a pot. And as much as I like the variegation, it's just very weak and it burns easily. I may decide to give it one last chance and perhaps stake that one solitary vine and see how it does. But if it dies, I'm not going to be terribly sad about it. Also, I might rehome my variegated lipstick plant. It's a pretty good growing plant, and I started out with cuttings of it, but the variegation is it's literally right beside me. Why did I just show it to you now? So you can see it's a nice big plant, but literally all of the cuttings I started out with were ones that I hand selected from mother plants that were very splashed and variegated. And you can see, I don't know if it's just the time of year, the lack of sunlight is really contributing, but this is literally the only variegated, noticeable variegation I have left. It's right here, and I ain't down with that. I like lipsticks, but there are other varieties that I think I would care for more than this. This was just kind of a wah wah. That's a sound effect. Sound effect for a dud or a letdown, like that. So now on to my wish list, and yes, this is an incredibly long wish list, but I broke it down into 3 categories. One is going to be my reasonable and or actively looking for wish list. So what does that entail? That means that I can reasonably find these plants. They're not so rare that they're not obtainable, and they are ones that I love so much that I am actively looking for on websites, locally, etc. Ceropegias, and this is my probably number 1 wish list group at the moment. And of course, that's probably going to wax and wane over the next few months. There might be something else I'm at that moment particularly fond of, particularly crazy for, that I want to find. But at the moment, it's Ceropegia. I really want to try and get the Ceropegia armandii, Simone, and Bosserii, or Bosseri. Those are some very interesting looking species. Probably any other species that are kind of cool that I can get my hands on, I'm going to be looking out for this year. I'll probably have to mail order them because that's definitely not something I'm going to be able to find locally. Syngonium raii and Wendlandii. Those are 2, I'm totally fine with finding either of them. Perhaps one day I'll be able to get both, but either one of them is fine. It's really gorgeous dark leaf Syngonium with the silver stripe down the center. I'm actively looking for those. I have found a few sources online that are usually always sold out, or it's not really the time of year that they sell them. Hoping I'll be able to get one of those this year. I'm not a huge fan of syngoniums in general, but this one is super cool looking. And I will try and find pictures of majority of these guys for you, but I might not be able to get a hold of all of them, so you'll just have to Google them if you care. Monstera stanleyana cobra, or the variegated variety of the stanleyana. I think this one's a very cool looking guy and looks like something I would have a lot of ease growing. Philodendron hastatum, or silver sword philodendron. Hupersia. I've seen a lot of this on Instagram. It looks challenging, but I am a sucker for anything with sort of ferny foliage like that. And I thought I could probably grow it in the bathroom. It's a little bit more humid in there. There's been a number of name changes on this particular plant. I originally discovered it as a Caladium lindenii magnificum, but I believe there have been a few name changes on it, so it might be Xanthosma now. Not entirely sure, but the foliage is pretty amazing. It has those beautiful lobes. It does look like a caladium, honestly, but with gorgeous white veining on it. It does look like a challenge. It looks like I would probably not be able to grow it super well outside of a humid situation, but it is one that I am willing to try. Cissus amazonica, and I did notice the Plant Farm, which is my local one of my local nurseries, has offered small starts of this, but it sells out very fast, so at the moment I'm not really buying plants, and I'm sure I will be able to find it there eventually at some point. Another sort of side project of mine is going to be collecting some plants with interesting petioles. I have the squamiferum, which is an amazing philodendron, and I might want to try and collect others, specifically aroids and philodendrons that have interesting petioles and or stems. The serpens, the philodendron serpens, fibrosum, have both very hairy petioles. I definitely want to try getting one and or both of those, as well as the Ploumanii, which has the sort of wavy, undulated petioles to them. So next category of my wish list is going to be the eventually category, which they are going to be on my radar, but I'm willing to wait to find a good specimen and or a reasonable price for that plant. These are going to be some slightly more rare varieties that will probably be a little bit more expensive. I do want to find at some point a variegated Monstera deliciosa, be that the Albo or the Thai constellation and or both. But it is a little bit more down there on my list, so I'm sure I will find them at some point. I'm just not really willing to spend hundreds of dollars for it. This guy I saw on eBay, and I dearly loved it when I saw it. I desperately wanted it, but it was a little bit too much out of my price range. Philodendron Warshwezii aureum. So it's a very gorgeous, lacy-leafed, bright gold philodendron, and I haven't seen anything quite like it. I fell in love with it pretty hard, and I think that would be a really cool plant to tuck in with all my very green foliage. Philodendron tortum, and or some of those more lacy leafed varieties. Of course, I feel like it's pretty much been on everybody's wish list this past year, the Anthurium clariniveum and or crystallum, or various cultivars of those and or hybrids of those. So Alocasia cuprea, the beautiful sort of shield metallic looking ripply alocasia. I haven't always had the best luck with alocasias, so that's definitely going to be on my radar for good price versus good specimen, because I don't think I'm going to find a really huge specimen for a good price, but I'd rather start out, not spending much on it in case I lose it. Probably the two very popular types of philodendrons. The Florida Beauty, the variegated version. I have seen some places offer a Florida Beauty that's just plain green. So the variegated version, and eventually the Ghost, which is going to be the more mottled variegation. Philodendron mayoi and mamei, or mame. Those I have been on the hunt for a while. Those will probably be some of the first that I try and find from the eventually list. And now for the drum roll, please, the outlandish wish list plants. Now these are ones that honestly I am prepared that I am probably never going to be able to afford in my lifetime, and or I will be an old lady and barely able to take care of myself when I am able to find a specimen that is not an arm and a leg. So the number one plant on my outlandish wish list is the variegated Monstera Adansonii, and I see it on Instagram and I lust for it hard. The Adansonii is one of my favorites anyhow, and I love variegated. It just combines all of those things. But I will not pay several $1,000s for one. It's just not going to happen. I only have 2 kidneys, and I see myself as a very semi-frequent drinker, and I might need all my vital organs to process this. So, yes, I don't see myself getting one of those anytime soon, but I still want one. My second runner-up for outlandish plant wish is the variegated billitii philodendron. That thing is freaking nonsense cool. It has the orange stems like the regular billitis, but the variegation is lusty, busty, gorgeous. I probably won't be able to afford one for many, 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 many years. Number 3 on that list is the Paradiso Verde philodendron. Again, the variegation is stunning. The price is also stunning. That is going to be my ditch and wish list of 2019. And I'm sure that will continue to grow this upcoming year. So maybe next year I'll do another video on my wish list and my ditch list, because I'm already looking at some of these plants like, I don't like you anymore. I'm probably going to ditch you anyhow. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. What plants do you plan on ditching this year? Why do you plan on ditching them? And what are your wish list plants? So that is it, I think. No, I think that's about it. And I'll talk to you guys all later. Bye!